good evening, and welcome to my free class. I'm so glad that you could come. Sorry I didn't get to do this live. It's like a crazy windy day today, and the internet keeps coming in and out, and the kids keep restarting it. And I figured it would be easier for me to record it here and upload it rather than try to mess with it coming in and out. So that is a bummer, but hopefully I get to chat with everybody anyways. But really what I want to do in this first class is kind of introduce what it is I'm doing and why, and how I think it can be helpful for young people to do this work. So really who I'm looking for when I do my coaching and in my programs is young people who really just kind of have a sense that they're not sure what it is they want to do. They know they don't really want to go to college. Maybe they might take a few classes, but it's really not like necessarily their goal, or they're not sure what they want to do, so they don't really want to go and spend time and money that they don't have until they're clear about the picture that they have for their future. Also kids maybe who school was, I don't want to say difficult for, but like it didn't feel like the right fit per se. Because eventually I'm going to be starting some school type programs for young people who really traditional school doesn't work for. But so that's kind of, it's not necessary that you have to not love school to work with me. But I really think that like oftentimes what comes up from the work is that the expectations from outside of us, or outside of your teenager or young 20s something, all these expectations are put on you, and a lot of times what comes up is that that's not necessarily what they want. That's not necessarily the path they'd like to take. And so that's why I suggest that those kids are kind of ones that fit in very well with the work that we do. A lot of times those kids are ADHD or ADD or high IQ, or maybe on the spectrum. Kids that just, I call them outside the box learners, really. And people who just get it, like they want to do something different. And maybe they want to be entrepreneurs, or maybe they want to be musicians, but everybody's pushing them into a traditional four-year college, or whatever the issue may be. I want those young people who have kind of shut down because they think that those are their only choices. And I want to help them really remember who they are and find those passions again, and help them to acknowledge and have the awareness that those are just as wonderful choices for their lives as the path that they're otherwise have been on. So I know that's kind of a mouthful. It's kind of hard I've found it a struggle to kind of explain what it is that I'm looking for, because I don't want to alienate parents to think, oh, well, kids need to go to college. I'm not saying that kids don't need to go to college. That's not where I'm coming from. What I'm saying is that I want to help young people uncover what their stuff is. You know how the teenagers have a lot of stuff. They've got hormonal changes. They've got interest in, relationships with other kids. They're obsessed with their friends, but a lot of times their friends are not necessarily the greatest influence on them. There's so much stuff that gets in the way of them being able to really become themselves, even though this is the time when they are trying to develop their sense of self. And I really want to help them kind of dig all that stuff out and get that stuff out of the way. And sometimes school is one of those things, and the outside external expectations on them can be pretty debilitating for a lot of young people. So, and I've seen that even with young coworkers of mine at different times. They, mid-20s, where their parents expect them to do one thing, and so they're kind of doing that, but they're not happy about it. And they can't necessarily put their finger on why they're unhappy. And those are the people that I want to kind of help and be working with. So if that sounds like you, if that sounds like your kid, if that sounds like somebody you know who I could help out, please have them reach out, because that's really my goal, is to get people out of their own way so that they can open up to who they really are. And when you open up to who you really are, you feel freer, you feel happier, you feel more contented with your choices. You're ready to go and do the things that make your life really exciting and really powerful. So that's really what my goal is, working with people. When I do life coaching with people, I really am looking for clients and for students who are going to do the work, because it's not my job to do it for you. That's not really helpful. That doesn't help you grow. So my job is to mirror and reflect for you what it is that your belief system is. And then you can question and decide what you need of that belief system and what part of that belief system is worth letting go. Because we all have different belief systems that have been established in us since we were little bitty kids. Some of them have been very helpful for us, and some of them have held us back. So I tend to help you kind of mirror and look and see what parts of that belief system that you hold that you feel are detrimental to yourself, and help you clear them and kind of step into your new life from a place of non-judgment, from a place of power, from a place of self, where you can really open up to, this is my role, this is what I want to do, this is what path I'm going to follow, for now at least. And it's also okay to change that path over time. I'm notorious for wanting to do different things, and some of that's, I'm a little bit ADHD, and some of that is just my growth in doing this self-love work and realizing what patterns I wish to let go of in my life. So yeah, so that's basically the work. But I wanted to talk today about how I really start and give you suggestions for places to begin with this work, because it can be difficult for some people to do it, because sometimes you uncover what we call shadows, or our dark side of ourselves, or some of the problems or things we've been through in life that maybe kind of haunt us still at times. And sometimes that can be a little bit heavy for people. But I feel like with life coaching, we don't dwell on it very long. We acknowledge, we love ourselves back to health, and then we let go. We allow the universe, God, whomever, whatever higher power or whatever self that you believe in, we ask that entity, that person, that whomever, to help us let that go, and that we no longer need that program running. So really, the absolute first thing that I suggest with all of my clients, and really a lot of my colleagues, is to do gratitude work. My own children do it. As we're sitting down to meals together, we talk about what we're grateful for. And sometimes we do it specific, like, what are you grateful for about mommy? Or what are you grateful for about your brother or your sister, or whatever, or the cats? And they have to be more specific, because they'll just be like, I'm grateful for me. And I'm like, well, what about you? And I start to try to dig a little bit. And that way they can really start living from a place of gratitude. And why is this so important? Because when you're grateful for things, your perspective about them shifts. Perspective shift is enormous in this work, because you could be looking at the same thing in the same way for years. All of a sudden one day something shifts and you look at it in a different way, and you're like, holy crap. How have this has been a burden for me for 5 years, and now it's something that I use to uplift me, or to show my value, or whatever. It's all how you decide to look at things. So if you show up from gratitude, it's amazing how much better a lot of these things show up for you. So gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Now, if you are in a place where you're feeling kind of depressed or anxious, it might be kind of difficult to find things to be grateful for. I want you to you can just go super surface stuff. Like, I'm grateful for my pillow because it helps me sleep. I'm grateful for my shower because it warms me when it's cold. Whatever. If you can do 3 gratitudes first thing in the morning and 3 gratitudes specifically from that day at nighttime, it will start to shift your world, and the gratitudes will become a very lot easier. Now, the interesting thing I find about doing gratitude work, and I think when I consider you have like one, quote unquote, that sounds like a judgmental word, but when you've kind of won from doing this process is when you find gratitude for the hardest things in your life. So if you have a relationship go bad and the person treated you really crappy, but then you find true absolute like gratitude and love for this person because they released you so you can find someone that actually is your soulmate, or your boss stinks but they're making you a better employee, and then you get a better job offer from someone else because they worked you so hard, or whatever it is. When you can get there, now that's not something that most people can get to right away. Usually it takes a month or 2 or a couple weeks of doing the gratitude work and getting really used to sitting in the gratitude before you can be like, yes, I love that boss that sucks, and not that you have to love like, oh my gosh, they're my favorite people. But when you have appreciation for something, that's love. That's a frequency of love. You appreciate them. You're thankful for what you've gotten from them. You have that gratitude. There's love there. Okay? So I don't mean like, you want to ask them on a date. That's just weird. But yeah, so start with the gratitude. And again, if all you can do is 3 in the morning, 3 in the evening, start there. And then you'll get to the point where it can come more readily and more readily. What I used to do is I had a reminder app on my phone that actually I have that for my diet right now. I'm focusing on cutting processed sugars. And so every hour it's like, don't eat that, or don't eat that soda, or drink, whatever. And it's a good reminder for me. But yeah, so you can download a reminder app that every hour or every 15 minutes or however often, tell me something you're grateful for. And then you hear the ding go off and you say to yourself or out loud or whatever, I'm grateful for my lunch today. It was really delicious and I didn't have to make it. I'm grateful for the flowers that are blooming on my tree, whatever. Okay. And the more you can get deep and the more you can find gratitude, like I said, it might take a week or 2 or 3 or 4 of doing this before you can really look at those things that you otherwise considered as difficult. But once you can look and say, now if I'm talking to teenagers right now, which is ultimately my goal, is I'll be coaching with the teenagers, I would say, okay, you're probably not super grateful for your parents right now because, they make you crazy. But let's write 10 things that you're grateful for your mom or your dad or whomever. Now that is when it starts getting to be magic, because it can really shift relationships. So if you're struggling, if you're a parent, if you're struggling with your kid, who's a teenager, who's a pain in your butt, or if you're a kid who you're struggling with your parents because they want you to do something that you don't want to do, whatever, start focusing on those relationships after a week or 2 of general gratitude, and really start, even if you have to sit there for a while and say, this is hard. I'm not terribly grateful for my mom because she nags me all the time to do something I really don't want to do. Stop sitting in that energy and say, you know what? My mom makes sure I have really healthy food in the house to eat. My mom drove me to basketball practice 4 times a week for 5 years. My mom pays the bills so I can have air conditioning, whatever. My mom took me to California for Christmas, whatever it is, okay? Give her all the love you can. If this is your spouse, your girlfriend, your kid, your whomever, that's your biggest trigger relationship, sit in gratitude as much as you can. It will absolutely head over heels, hand over hand, change your relationship with this person. The more you can just be grateful. And then when you change your perspective of things, you'll watch the other people around you, they shift their relationship with you as well. It is the most amazing thing. When I started doing this self-love work, I really started focusing on my perception of some of my relationships that I used to kind of put blame on. You know how we all, like, when we start doing this work, we blame our parents, because a lot of the, they raised us. So they raised us to be who we are. Some of that stuff, even if they were trying their absolute best, doing what they thought was the right thing to do, it could have shaped our self, our individual self, in a way that we don't necessarily love right now. That doesn't mean they were bad parents. That doesn't mean they were stank or whatever. But when I started really doing this work, a lot of it was like, oh, well, I felt invisible in my family because blah, 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 right? And I had all these, like, stories. And then I finally was like, you know what, though? Even though she wasn't perfect, my mom was a pretty awesome mom. And I started saying all the things I was grateful for. And she started showing up for me differently. A lot of the critical language she used with me before, she didn't use anymore. She started complimenting me as a person, as a mom, especially as a mom. And so I got a lot more positive validation from her than I was aware that I was getting before. I might have been getting before, and just my programs of she's critical kept coming up for me. And it was really revelatory, because I said, well, maybe she was always saying these things, I just couldn't hear her. And I started to realize that everything was in me. Everything was my stuff that I was projecting onto her. And I know this probably seems a little confusing at this point, but once you start really digging into the work, you will start to see what it is I'm talking about. And now how I help you if I'm coaching with you is I say, tell me about your relationship with your mom, or tell me about your relationship with your dad or your cousin or your brother or whatever. And I start to hear how you speak about them. I hear the patterns that come up. Oh, I felt like I was abandoned often. Oh, they said they'd do something and they never followed through. They said they'd be there and they never came. Whatever. And I'd say, oh, okay, sounds like you have abandonment issues. That's perfectly normal and understandable. Let's go back to a time when you felt abandoned. And so we kind of do what we call time travel, which is certainly not, getting in the DeLorean and flying through time, but it's having our psyche, having our ego, having our subconscious take us back to a time when we felt that way. Now, we preferably try to get back to the first time, but sometimes we have to work at it till we can get back to that first time that we felt that program. But we can dig through and kind of start to heal up and do the work that way. So if abandonment is one of your major triggers, then we go back to that time when you were 4 and your dad left your mom and you and mom struggled and you missed your dad, and that was just the beginning of the abandonment stuff. And since then, you've had people die, you've had people leave your life, you've had girlfriends or boyfriends who loved you but left you, and you'll have that same pattern you'll see over and over. Maybe pets who've died, things like that. So you have that program that shows up, and then it keeps showing up until you heal that wound. Okay, so that's what we do in life coaching, is we would go back to it and look at it and kind of rewrite the story in your subconscious, so that you don't really feel like you're afraid of being abandoned any longer. So I know that all sounds kind of heavy and intense, and sometimes it can be, but it's so uplifting, because once you've kind of gotten past it, you're not afraid of it anymore. You can start to realize, oh, you know what? Not everyone is going to abandon me, because you start to realize that you create your own reality. And when you create your own reality, the only person that can abandon you is you. Everybody outside of you is a reflection of you. So then you question, where have I abandoned myself? How can I get back to a place where I'm not doing that? Okay, so this is, like I said, pretty heavy stuff sometimes, but we don't sit in the muck very long. We get the muck out, we love it back to health, and then we move on and we let go of it. And we might see those patterns come up in different ways, but usually now I'm more aware of it. Oh, I broke up with my boyfriend. I get it. He's not abandoning me. I'm still abandoning myself. Maybe I gave up my personality in that relationship, and so the universe needed to show me that I was abandoning myself. There are patterns of behavior that we start to notice about ourselves that we can acknowledge in the moment and make different decisions if we want to, or come from a different place than we used to, out of that wounded place, as opposed, now we're going to be coming from a place of awareness and love, self-love. Okay. This probably sounds like really heavy and a lot of information, but I think if you go back over it, you can kind of get the gist of what I'm talking about. And then if you feel like this is something that's beneficial to you, again, I would say join up in the program with the classes, because I really think this is work worth doing. And now, especially when you're talking about teenagers and young 20s, like your stuff, for those of you who are that age group, your stuff isn't super ingrained in you yet because you're not that old. You haven't gone through that same pattern over and over and over again for 40 years. You might have only been sitting with it for a decade, which sounds like a long time. When you're young, you feel like you're old anyways. Hold on, excuse me. But it's easier to let go of some things when you're at a younger age. Whereas if you wait and do the work when you're in your 40s or your 30s, it's going to be really solidified in there a lot more, and it might take more time and effort to kind of do the work. Like, I've been on this journey for probably 2 years. I don't do extensive life coaching anymore. I do have access to my mentor, and so I might have a session with her once every 2 months or so, just to kind of check in, see where I'm at. But now I can pretty much recognize the work as it shows up for me. And I don't get triggered so much anymore, like, at all. I rarely get irritated. Like, that is not, I do have awarenesses of like, I have some judgment about this. This is something I need to look at. That's about the extent of it for me now. Whereas I used to get angry and frustrated and depressive and anxious, and I got all those things. And now I really don't, almost ever, which is really awesome. And when I do, it's within minutes that I stop and I say, okay, what is this trying to tell me? What do I need to work on? And, so I can do the work kind of on my own, in the moment as best I can. So that's really my ultimate goal, is to allow you the skills to do this work as it comes up. Because honestly, in this lifetime, most of us, probably none of us, will get to like full enlightenment stage where we're just love all the time. We will get better where we're love most of the time, where we have self-love 98% of the time. But there might be time, there's going to be stuff that we're working on continuously throughout our lives. But if you can do 90% of it now, or 80% of it now while you're 20 or 18 or however old you are, you're going to start life as an adult very fresh. Sorry, I know my glasses are really reflective. But you're going to start your life as an adult from a really, really secure, open-minded, well space, which is really nice. And once you can do that, then you can really acknowledge what it is you want to do. You can acknowledge what you don't want to do. And then all of a sudden you get these dream jobs, or you start your own business with a friend, or, the opportunities show up once you start to heal yourself, because you set boundaries. I really am not going to work an overnight job because I don't want to do that. I want to have kids, and I don't want to work an overnight job. Period. Or I really am not good at customer service, and I really don't want to have to deal with people face to face. So I'd like a job where I have my own office, whatever. Next thing you know, you get a job in the office, So the clearer you become on who you actually are, the easier that stuff becomes. Finding a job, finding a career, doing passion projects, things like that. So that's my goal as well, is to, once you get out of your own way, once you clear your head, once you get all that stuff settled, then you can kind of be like, oh, I really love drawing and painting, and I'm actually really good at it. I wonder how I could make this into my own business, or I wonder how I could market myself to a movie company or an author who writes books or whatever. Okay. And that is kind of my second step of the process. That hopefully we get to in coaching, but in this program, it depends on how fast you work. It would probably surprise me if we did it in 6 weeks. But I'm a go-getter, so I'm kind of like, I see something I want and I do it. I'm like, get out of my way. That crazy song, move, get out the way, get out the way, get out the way. That's my theme song. And so, some of you might do that work in just a couple of months. But we can certainly talk about programs after that, because the school project I'm working on is actually just like that. We're going to be doing an actual project together as a group with the life coaching and with okay, you've got these skills, maybe you're not so great at these skills, but you really want to start your own business over here. And, we'll have those conversations and kind of get to the heart of what your individual skills are. Okay. So that's really the goal for this program. And the classes will probably be right around half an hour, because I think that's kind of enough information to digest. That's a lot in there. So go back and listen again if you need to, or reach out with questions about the process if you would like. Next week is, we'll jump into actually doing some more of the life coaching skills and such, so that you can start your process. I'm very excited for you all, and thank you so much for joining me. And again, please reach out. Here on Facebook is great. Or you can email me at kathysquantumcoaching@yahoo.com. So CATHYSQUANTUMCOACHING@yahoo.com. I know that's a really long email address. But yes, reach out, and I'm glad to help. And let's do this work. I'm really, really excited for you all. It changed my life. I wish I had done it when I was 20, because I really think that I would have done a lot at a young age. I mean, I did do a lot anyways, but I think I would have really started and jumped wholeheartedly into my work if I had done the life coaching at a younger age. So so reach out if you'd like to join me, and I will catch all of you very soon. And thank you. Good night.